Hello everyone, welcome back. I think I'm a bit wonky there. um, uh, it's Saturday and I'm about a third of the way through this, which I've said before that every year in the summer I tend to end up with a big literary biography of some kind and really enjoying it. And I think I've missed out on that the last couple of years. Maybe the last one I really enjoyed, I think, was the Deirdre Bear one about Samuel Beckett and Simone de Beauvoir, I think. Anyway, this year, I've had this for a while. Bernie Taupin's book about being a lyricist for Elton John and writing about the late 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's called Scattershot and it came out last year. It's Scattershot because he kind of goes across time back and forth rather than chronological. I knew I was going to enjoy it. I had a feeling. It felt like it was concocted. The bits that I'd seen or heard about, it feels like it's concocted from this kind of rich broth of somebody's life, lived everywhere amongst all these amazing people through these amazing events. This kind of slightly quiet seeming character on the edges of biographies of Elton John and other rock stars of the time. Somebody standing in the wings, perhaps, but you knew had this amazing, vivid life, inner life, because of the content of those songs, because of the lyrics. And it turns out to be true. It's a really fantastic book. Um, it's perhaps not edited the best. I think it's overwritten with lots of verbiage that could do with some pruning and sometimes just the wrong words in places. It's kind of impressionistic. And at one point, he uses the word impressionistic instead of impressionable, which drives me mad. There are just words used wrongly, but they are kind of impressionistic. They're slapped down in unseemly haste at times, it seems. But for all of that, it's magical, I think. The two most recent chapters I've read, about a third of the way through, have been fabulous. The one on Paris I've just read, about staying in the suite where Oscar Wilde died, in l'Hôtel, in Saint Andre de Beaux-Arts, a place I know well. And he stays there in 1976. And we spiral out into the nightlife of Paris and these sleazy nightclubs, and then accounts of recording outside of Paris and the people and places and the faces of that time, and this kind of idea of the 70s jet set, which I never tire of reading about, whether it's David Hockney or Serge Gainsbourg or Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor, or David Bowie, people around at that time. It's just a fascinating kind of aristocracy, really, and the lives they lived, kind of joyful. Although there's always this darkening of the edges when it comes to drugs, and the same is true here when you hear about how they lived in the early 80s, the state that both he and Elton got themselves into, and the people around them got themselves into over drugs. Anyway, stunning. And the chapter before that was all about Graham Greene and one tiny conversation of, to the kind of outside world, very little consequence. The kind of hellos they had in a bar, in a hotel, in London in the 80s, I think. But it's magical. It's about a bibliophile. It's about somebody who loves books more than anything, loves words and respects writers. And what's brilliant is that it's a kind of adventure spy story in a way. Itself, the whole chapter. He goes to this hotel for an assignation with another book lover. Bernie is buying a copy of a sought after book for his collection. It just happens to be a first edition of Mary Norton's The Borrowers. That would endear him to me forever, the fact that he sets off into this kind of Graham Greene story, and his object of desire is The Borrowers by Mary Norton. And when he goes to this hotel, he has a drink alone, clutching his book, and that's when he sees Graham Greene sitting in a wing-back chair, knocking the gin back, and they have this little conversation in which he can tell him what his books mean to him. So those two chapters together are just been stunning, cinematic, literary, transporting chapters, really. And the ones preceding that, about starting out in London and sharing a room with Elton in Elton's mother's house. Bits of that we got in Elton's book, Me, a couple of years ago, are delightful as well. So even though it's a book chock-a-block with words that maybe don't all have to be there, it has the zeal of somebody who has taught himself literature. That's what it is. I get the same feeling from Patti Smith's books and love them as well. And whereas her gods, her literary gods, are all French and very high class, Rimbaud and Verlaine and Baudelaire, Taupin's are a kind of more scattershot. He trawls the streets of New York for second-hand bookshops that sell science fiction books and comics in the 1970s. He reveres Michael Moorcock, and I love him for that as well. The fact that he moves between high and low culture and sees science fiction as part of that. I always remember Lorna Sage saying if she was going to write about her life in the jet set, in the literary jet set of the 1970s, it would be a kind of science fiction novel, because that's what they were living. That's how they lived. In a kind of pre-apocalyptic J.G. Ballard world of travel everywhere and this quite decadent 70s life. Anyway, it's all happening here, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it. I just thought I'd park my thoughts about this so far on a little video for you today. But I'm really enjoying it, and I think after that I need to read in time for the next book club, The Hotel New Hampshire, which, as I said recently, I've read about 4 times over the last 30 years. I haven't read it for a while, but it will fit in nicely. It is a little slice of that kind of 70s international decadence as well. It really is, thinking back. It's of a piece in a way. So that might well be my next read. Okay, I shall stop there and see you again soon. Thanks again for all your comments. I should do another questions and answers video soon. That's what I'd like to do. So if you have any questions of anything to do with what I get up to, pop them below in the comments. Anyway, see you again soon. Goodbye.